But to no one's surprise who knows anything about the mullah regime in Iran, Iran is doubling down on its right to nuclear enrichment in the wake of the strikes by the U.S. and Israel against Iran's nuclear megaplex. One of the Iranian leaders this last week said this: "We cannot give up enrichment because it is an achievement of our own scientists. And now more than that, it is a question of national pride." Of course, that's a deal breaker for both the United States and Israel, for Iran to be able to continue to enrich uranium. And on Iran's part, it's a deal breaker for them not to be able to do that. So all that is to say, there's clearly another showdown that's on the near horizon. This isn't finished yet. The 12-day war and the U.S. strikes were just the warm-up to what's invariably coming. Remember the words of the former Israeli defense minister I quoted earlier: Jerusalem will have to strike again at some point. Now, Newsweek has a headline that says this: Donald Trump issues new warning to Iran, threatens to attack again. The article says this: President Donald Trump said he would hit Iranian nuclear sites again if necessary, reiterating his warning to Tehran that it should abandon its ambitions to keep enriching uranium. Now, Iran, though, is not just defiantly refusing to stop Iranian enrichment. Iran is also doubling down on its support of its terror proxies. CNN's headline says this: Nothing has changed. Iran tries to rearm proxy groups as U.S. talks stall. The article says this: Iran's armed proxies are ramping up pressure on key points in the Middle East as Tehran attempts to rebuild its regional influence, eroded by almost 2 years of a destructive Israeli military campaign. Tehran's Houthi allies in Yemen ended months of calm in the Red Sea last week with strikes on 2 commercial ships traveling in the critical waterway. Proxies in Iraq are suspected of disrupting oil production in the Kurdish region, and shipments of hundreds of rockets bound for Hezbollah in Lebanon have been intercepted by Syrian forces over the past months. So all this just reinforces the idea that Iran is busily doing all it can right now to reestablish, to rearm, and to reinvigorate its network of terror proxies. And of course, those 3 main proxies are the 3 H's, I call them: Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah up in Lebanon and the northern part of Syria, and then the Houthis down in Yemen. A Newsweek headline says, Israel warns Iran in new IDF assessment. The article says this: a top general in the Israel Defense Forces warned that Israel will continue with its campaign against Iran and its proxies in the Middle East just 4 weeks after a fragile U.S.-brokered ceasefire ended its 12-day war with Tehran. Iran and its axis remain in our sights. The campaign against Iran is not over, the IDF chief of the general staff stated. He says Tehran said it had already restored the air defenses that Israel destroyed during the recent war, in which many top Iranian military, intelligence, and nuclear officials were killed, and Iran's nuclear facilities severely damaged by Israeli and U.S. strikes. So Iran is defiantly determined never to back down a 1 inch. Now, having said all of that and kind of set that stage, let me just circle back to what I highlighted earlier at the beginning of this video. Iran is now burning with the desire for revenge and for retribution. Their leaders are obsessed with it. According to these intelligence reports, that's all they think about. And I believe that's going to play a key role in the Ezekiel 38 war, because Iran wants payback. They want payback now more than ever. They've been humiliated by Israel and by the United States. And the gathering of the end-time coalition that's outlined in Ezekiel 38, with the backing of Russia and Turkey, with them joining with Iran, will give Iran the opportunity that it's been salivating over now for decades and wants now more than ever. I was rereading Ezekiel 38 this morning, and Ezekiel 38 verse 9, I think, is instructive. In light of, just think about Iran's hatred, their desire for revenge now and retribution against Israel for what they've done. Iran was basically helpless. Their air defenses were taken out. Israel had control over the airspace over Iran and could do whatever they wanted to do, and Iran had to just sit there and take it. And when they get the chance someday for revenge, they're going to jump at it. And Ezekiel 38, verse 9, I think is a graphic picture of this. It's describing the coalition coming into Israel in the end times. And it says, you and all your troops and the many nations with you will go up, advancing like a storm. You will be like a cloud covering the land. And that's exactly what Iran wants to do. They want to come like a storm into Israel and be like a cloud that will come and cover the land. Iran, when it joins this Ezekiel 38 coalition in the end times, will believe it's finally achieved this decades-long goal of wiping Israel off the face of the earth. It'll look like one of the greatest mismatches in all of history. But of course, we read in Ezekiel chapter 38 at the end of that chapter and in chapter 39 that God will turn the tables on these invaders. And it'll be one of the greatest rescue operations in history as God, by supernatural means, wipes out these invading armies. But let me just close by pointing this out. At an even deeper level, this desire for revenge that Iran has plays into Iran's view of the end of days. Iran is driven by an eschatology or a view of the end times. That's really what drives their leaders. They believe in what's called Mahdiism. Mahdiism is the belief that the 12th Imam, this hidden Imam, is going to return in the end of days in a time of great crisis. But they also believe it will happen when the nation of Israel has been destroyed. And so part of their desire to wipe out Israel is to put out the welcome mat for their Mahdi. And so everything within the Iran regime is viewed through this prism. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, their central organizing theology is this eschatology, this view of the end times of the Mahdi returning in a time of great crisis and chaos and destruction after Israel has been destroyed. I ran across a statement by an author this week that really gripped me and summarizes this powerfully. He says, the confrontation between Iran and Israel then is not just about borders or missiles. It's about sacred narratives colliding on the stage of history. Iran sees itself as the vanguard of divine justice. Israel, in its view, is a temporal aberration whose fall will announce the reentry of the divine into the political world. In this sense, the battlefield is not only Gaza or the Golan, it is time itself. The countdown in Tehran's eschatology has already begun.